G'day guys, and welcome back to another video on the channel. And in today's video we are going to be doing what we do at the end of every AFL season. For the past 2 years after the season has come to an end, we have hopped on Tiermaker and graded each team's season, so we're back here to do it again after season 2022. Before we do get into the video guys, we are so close to hitting the end of the year milestone, which is 5k subscribers, so if you are new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, jump on board. We're trying to get to 5k by the end of the year, so if you haven't already subscribed, make sure to do that. It will help out a lot. Also leave a like on the video and we'll get straight into it. We are on the Tiermaker list. We've got A+, A, B, C and D, so we'll get straight into it. The Crows coming into the season and they finished just above the bottom four in 14th position, 32 points, percentage of 86.7. I'm going to put the Crows bang on in the middle because I feel like they've had some season defining wins. Obviously they had the Carlton game where they won, which is a huge win for the Crows. In the past couple of years haven't been the best for the Crows, and I feel like they're taking leap after leap. Obviously they're in the rebuilding stage at the moment, the Crows, but their team is real firm and the rebuild is going really well. And now with the Brisbane Lions, well, I'm not going to say A+, obviously. I'm going to chuck the Crows down a notch just, but we might have to ramble things up at the end. So the Brisbane Lions, I'm going to chuck in the A position. They, well, everyone was writing them off first week of finals. Obviously they didn't have the finish that they wanted to, finishing in 6th position. They dropped down out of that top 4. And yeah, obviously didn't get the second chance in finals, but they proved a lot in finals. They did. They beat Richmond when not many people expected them to, and they went on the road to the MCG to defeat the Ds in straight sets. Credit to the Lions, obviously they were knocked out in a pretty big thumping in the preliminary final against the Cats. However, to do what they did this year, the Brisbane Lions, is nothing short of just amazing, really. Obviously finishing 6th, like I mentioned before, and yeah, they just played finals footy really well in their home and away season. Well, bit up and down, but you know what, pretty successful and yeah, pretty good season. Now moving on to the Blues. Oh god, look, the Blues, they played so well during the year. It's just, they dropped out of finals. They lost the last 3 games of the season. B, I'm going to chuck them in B. If not, they could even be the same level as Adelaide, but they had some pretty good wins. You know, they lost the last 3 games. They were in the 8. Actually, no. I need to put them in C, considering they were in the 8 after every round of the season, and it was the last round of the year where they got knocked out. I have to put them in C. I have to put them in C. The Pies, well, look, I'm going to put them obviously in front of Brisbane. They finished 4th. They finished top 4 when everyone was writing them off start of the year. Everyone was saying bottom 4 finish. Even some wooden spoon predictions as well thrown out there at the start of the year, but they defied all bloody odds, the Pies. In fact, they are nearly here, considering they nearly made it all the way to the grand final, and stopping them from getting to the grand final was only 1 point in between them and the Sydney Swans. They could go in A+. They really, really could. I'm going to chuck them very, very front of A. They are so close to going up in the A+ section, the Pies. Their first year with their new coach, Craig McRae. Their first full year with Craig McRae, and the things that they did with the new coach, outstanding. Nothing short of just outstanding, because usually we see when a new coach is introduced to a side, they don't start off too well. However, the Pies, they played really well in season 2022. Moving on now to the Bombers. Well, we're going to have to chuck them in D. End of C, but they did have a really bad year, the Bombers, seriously. They beat Adelaide, I remember, for their first win of the season, and then the Bombers did come close in some results against some pretty good sides. However, I'm going to put them end of C, the very end of C, I reckon, because it's a bit stiff for the Blues fans putting Carlton and Essendon in the same column, so Essendon at the very, very back of C. Now up to the Freo Dockers. Wow, I feel like we had a bloody outstanding season. Obviously finished 5th on the table, just missed out of that top 4 position. We did everything we bloody could. However, just needed a couple of results to go our way to make the top 4 in the last round, which didn't happen, which was a bit annoying. We needed Carlton to beat the Pies, which didn't happen, and we needed St Kilda to beat Sydney, which was just never going to happen. So I reckon we're in A as well. I reckon we had a real good roll of the dice this year. The Freo Dockers, 62 points. Obviously, all of our young guns coming into play. Geez, we look good. We look strong. Our formation, our chemistry amongst the group is just immaculate. So I'm going to chuck them behind the Lions. In fact, no. We had a better year than the Lions. Now the Cats, obviously, well, just chuck them straight up in A+. Too old, too slow, too bloody good, the Geelong Cats. And yeah, obviously won the flag. Obviously we saw Joel Selwood retire yesterday, which was a bit disappointing, but had to come to an end. And what a way to bloody finish off his career as well with the premiership. So yeah, the Cats obviously going up in A+, seem as though they're the premiers, and everyone did write them off at the end of the year, not thinking they were going to be too great of a side, but they came minor premiers with two games spare of Melbourne, who finished in second. So it's a 2-game difference between first and second, the gap there. Wow, bloody hell. And the percentage as well, the Cats are just on top of the entire league, and they dominated and thrashed Sydney by 81 points in the granny. Now the Suns had a real good crack this year. They beat the Dockers, they beat Richmond after the siren. They had some pretty bloody good efforts out there, the Gold Coast Suns. Put Carlton, I'm going to move them up because it's a bit stiff putting him in the same column as these two, especially someone who finished in the bottom 4, but I'm going to do this. I don't know, I genuinely feel like the Suns showed more, and considering how poor the Blues finished off their season, considering they were in the 8 the entire year, I'm going to put them in behind the Suns, and the Suns, well yeah, they've got something to prove. They've had some real good cracks, real good roll of the dice this year, the Suns. I'm going to put them in front of the Blues, I reckon. And now the GWS Giants, well, goodness gracious me, they were poor. They were really poor. I'm gonna actually put them in D. Oh, I don't know, or maybe very end of C. Very end of C. I feel like the Crows could even go into here. Look, the Crows had some decent games, but obviously finishing 14th. I'm going to leave them there, and I might have to move the Giants down in a bit, but I'm going to put the Giants in C, give them the benefit of the doubt, even though they were absolutely atrocious this year. Now we move on to the Hawks, and the Hawks had a decent roll of the dice in season 2022. They finished 13th, 8 wins, 14 losses. Yeah, look, not the best season, going to be honest. I'm going to chuck them. Well, they did beat the Premiers though. They did beat Geelong on Easter Monday, and they had some pretty good games, the Hawks. I'm going to pop them behind the Baggers, I reckon. I feel like the Hawks and the Crows are on pretty similar levels. And the D's, well, disappointing end of the year, but considering what they did throughout the season, they had some pretty decent wins. Obviously, coming off the back of the Premiership last year, they were coming in as red-hot favourites to win them back-to-back. However, obviously the Cats were able to get that done. They had a record of 16-6, which is immaculate, really. I'm going to pop them in front of... No, I'm actually going to put them here. I don't feel like they had as good as a season as Collingwood, because Collingwood came from the absolute clouds, and everyone was expecting the D's to do good, and they did do well. But no one was expecting the Pies to finish where they did, so I'm going to put the Pies in front of the D's. North Melbourne, now obviously 2 wooden spoons in a row. It's just nothing short of disgraceful. They are really bad, seriously. You might not think they're that bad. I tipped them a few times this year thinking, you know what, maybe an upset here to occur. However, they won 2 games in season 2022. How bad is that? 2 games, 20 losses. It is just an embarrassing record to have. Power, though, they had a pretty underwhelming year, I reckon, the Power. I'm going to chuck them. I feel like the Suns just showed more than Port Adelaide. I reckon the Suns just showed more than the Power. And I'm going to put them in between the Suns and the Carlton Blues, because I reckon Port Adelaide Football Club, they were expected to do things this year. A few of them even expecting them to obviously make the 8s. They had a record of 10 wins and 12 losses. Obviously, the first 5 weeks of the season were all losses. Tigers finished 7th this year, and they just had an average year. They really just had an average year, but they made the finals. They got knocked out straight away, obviously in the first week of finals. I'm going to put them bottom end of A, very back of A. I feel like I could be doing Carlton a bit stiff here. I really could be. Maybe, I don't know, I feel like the Suns just showed more. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put the Blues in front of the Power. However, Richmond, I'm going to put at the very back of A. Moving on to the Saints now. They finished 10th, and they had a pretty poor year, the Saints. Look, nothing was really showed. They didn't make finals. They didn't show too much. They did flog the Hawks though, so I reckon here, or maybe here. I'm going to put them there. I'm going to put them there, just in front of the Power. Moving on to the Sydney Swans, obviously runners up in this year's grand final. And similar to Melbourne, everyone expected the Swans to do something in season 2022. No one expected Collingwood to do any good, so I'm genuinely going to put it there. I'm genuinely going to put the Swans there. Obviously, they were runners up in the grand final, so it would make sense if I put them here. However, they were demolished on grand final day, and I feel like the Pies just showed more. They were not expected to do well, and they did, I reckon, better than most teams in the league other than Geelong. So I'm going to put them there, I reckon, in between the D's and the Pies. I reckon that's a perfect position to put them. Now onto West Coast. Put them there because they're West Coast. Now moving on to the Dogs. I'm going to put the Dogs. Well, they finished 8th, just sneaking in. They had a pretty average year. I'm gonna chuck them there. I'm going to chuck them there, I reckon, at the very top of B. They snuck into finals, just probably not the most deserving finals position. I feel like the Blues probably should have got it in the bag, but I'm going to do that. I reckon we're going to sit it like that. Obviously, the Premiers in the A+ position coming up. Runners up is the Pies, who no one expected them to do well, so going to chuck them in A, considering they made a top 4 placement and nearly made it to the grand final and had a terrific record this year, won 12 in a row, followed by the runners up in the grand final, Melbourne, Freo, Brisbane, Richmond, and the rest speaks for itself. That's going to be it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to leave a like. As I said at the start of the video, we're trying to hit 5k by the end of the year, so if you are new and haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do so right now. It'd help out a lot. Cheers for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all in my next video.